Early paintings and drawings of Aboriginal dancing. Before there were movie cameras, pictures of Aboriginal dancing were drawn or painted by artists. And many of these early pictures may be found today in libraries and art galleries. The painting you are now looking at, called Corroboree, is by an artist who came to South Australia from England about 150 years ago. You may have seen several dances like this one. You'll notice that the dancers in this picture are all men, and that on the right-hand side of the painting, facing the dancing men, are two seated women, each one with a pair of song sticks. These women would be singing the dance songs while beating the two sticks together in accompaniment. The moon can be seen through the trees, and the light from the large campfire shines on the dancers' shields. In this corroboree, painted by the same artist, dancers are waving sticks and spears as they advance towards the row of seated women singers. Beside the fire stands a man beating sticks, as if showing the women how this should be done. The sound of corroboree singing and all those beating sticks must have echoed around that sheltered dancing place on a clear night. Here we see another early painting of Aboriginal dancing, this time by a group in the southeastern region of Australia. This painting is called Corroboree on the Banks of the Murray, and a small part of the Murray River can be seen in the background. One of the dancers, the tall man in the centre of the group, is carrying a long pole topped with feathers. If you look carefully, you can see some women seated near the fire on the right. One of them may be beating a skin bundle with her hands as an accompaniment to the singing. On the left-hand side of the picture, a boy joins in the music making, beating together his own two sticks. In this slide we have an artist's impression of a corroboree on the banks of the Upper Manning River in New England, New South Wales. Note how clearly the painted marks on the dancers' bodies stand out in the light from the two fires. And over on the left, closer to the dancing men, a child stands and watches the corroboree performance. This last picture was drawn by Mickey from Ulladulla on the south coast of New South Wales. The dancers seem to be wearing European clothes, and you'll notice that women are dancing as well as men. Some of the men are waving boomerangs. Women dancers have bunches of leaves in their hands. Everybody looks very excited. At the top of the picture, Mickey has drawn trees, birds and animals. There's a lizard in the grass, also a snake. Perhaps these creatures are the subjects of the Ulladulla dance songs. Mickey may have been one of the last to see Aboriginal dancing and to hear corroboree singing in this region, for today traditional corroboree performances no longer take place in southern, southwestern or eastern parts of Australia. Rote learning. Young Aborigines learn their songs by hearing other Aborigines sing. Boys learn to sing and beat sticks or boomerang clap sticks by watching older people, by singing with them, and by listening to the same sounds over and over again. Most Aboriginal songs and dances are learnt and practised this way. Aboriginal children watch and listen to corroborees, and when they want to, they join in the singing. Or they get up and join in the dancing. When the boys are old enough, they are taught songs and dances, which are performed during ceremonies and rituals. The family songs and the favourite corroboree songs are learnt in the camps at night time. The children don't learn all these songs because many of them fall asleep when the corroborees are going on. But the ones they do know they've heard many times. They've become accustomed to these songs. Hearing them has become a habit. And habit learning is rote learning. In earlier days, when large numbers of Aborigines gathered together, much of the time was spent in performing and learning new songs and dances. One group would exchange a corroboree with another group. This meant that the performance had to be very carefully watched and listened to a number of times until the people who were learning it were able to join in with the people who were showing the corroboree to them. Aboriginal people who are used to learning by rote become very quick at learning new songs and dances. The passing of songs from one group to another in this way is oral transmission. Performers and occasions. Aborigines prefer to sing and dance outside, and corroborees take place on a cleared piece of ground where many people can gather together, each group singing and dancing in turn. Corroborees are held after the sun goes down. Fires are lit, and especially if the moon is bright, the dancers can be clearly seen. The painted designs on their bodies help to identify them, and the people who can see these body paintings know who the dancers are and the groups they belong to. Individual singers are recognised by the sound of their voices and by the songs they sing. Singers are the most important people at a corroboree, for if there were no songs and stick beating to provide the dance music, there wouldn't be a corroboree at all. The word corroboree means dance, and it's believed to have come from an Aboriginal language once spoken in New South Wales. It's used today all over Australia, and even by Aboriginal people who have their own words for dance in their own languages. For a big corroboree or ceremony, people used to travel by foot over long distances. In some parts of Australia today, they travel by car or by truck, or even by plane. Ceremonies are important occasions, because they usually occur at the time of a young Aboriginal boy's initiation. And besides the dancing and singing, there'll be meetings between friends and relatives, some of whom may not have seen each other for years. In former times, occasions like this would have provided an opportunity for the trading and exchange of goods, such as stone axes, spear points, pearl shell, and red ochre, a pigment used for decorating the bodies of the dancers, and in some places the dance ground. Large quantities of food would have been gathered beforehand, for these ceremonies would go on for a long time. In this bark painting by a man from Rote Island, you'll see a picture showing an Aboriginal ceremony. It's not meant to look like a photograph. It's designed to tell us about the way a ceremony like this is organised. Near the centre of the picture, the round object is the dance ground. It's surrounded by supplies of food, which may have to last for some time, for when a ceremony is taking place, everybody is too busy to go hunting or fishing and food gathering. You'll notice that there are 2 didgeridoo players, 2 seated singers with pairs of sticks, 2 rows of seated supporting singers, and 2 sets of dancers. This is because Aboriginal communities are divided into 2 halves, or moieties. Some families belong to moiety A, other families belong to moiety B. There are names for the 2 moieties in many of the Aboriginal languages, but we shall call them simply moiety A and moiety B. When a religious ceremony takes place, members of one moiety make all the necessary arrangements. They see to the gathering of the food, the preparation of the dance ground, and they collect and prepare the dance materials and decorations. The other moiety also makes an important contribution. Their members supply the chief singers, who are also the custodians or owners of the important ceremonial songs. This bark painting represents a scene of a family ceremony. Someone has just died. Some of the relatives of the deceased are attending as members of moiety A, others as members of moiety B. These people are paying their respects to the spirit of the deceased person. They believe that by singing and dancing in this way, the dead person's spirit will go off safely to its final resting place and not make any trouble for the people who are still living. Each family or clan has its own songs and dances, and these are represented by the birds, fish, animals and other objects that you can see painted in the left of this picture. The little tree represents a kind of seaweed. In the opposite corner are barbed spears. Spears, seaweed, shark, snake, fish, dugong, green-backed turtle, pigeon, curlew. All these belong to certain family groups, and the Aboriginal members of these groups believe that they belong to them. These are the things Aborigines sing about in their traditional songs. In the words of their songs are the names of these creatures, and the names of all the places they visit as they travel about. The Aborigines have stories about all these things, and they remember the stories by the words in their songs. And the songs are passed on, orally transmitted from one singer to another, and from one generation to the next. Some of the song words remind Aborigines of rules of behaviour, and the tribal laws they must not break. They remind each person of his special place or country, of his clan and his relations. They also remind him of the moiety to which he belongs, and of the marriage laws he must obey. In some parts of Australia, Aboriginal women and girls don't dance. In other places, they do. All Aboriginal women, as well as men, learn the rules and laws of their community. They also know most of the songs. Many of them remember songs better than the men do, and whenever they can, they sing them to the children. Aboriginal music is principally vocal music, and depending on region and occasion, the singing is either unaccompanied or accompanied by sound instruments. Throughout Australia, most of the corroboree singing is done by Aboriginal men, though in parts of Western Australia and on Bathurst and Melville Islands, women join in the dance songs with the men. In most parts of Australia, dancers move toward the seated singing group. In the island-style dancing in Cape York, the dancers sing as they move about. With the cave paintings of dancing figures as evidence, we know that Aboriginal singing and dancing of some kind or another has been practiced for thousands of years, even though no record remains of the sound of the music as it was performed in past centuries. Sound instruments and their distribution. The grandparents and great-grandparents of many Aboriginal children would often travel over long distances on foot to attend corroborees and to take part in the singing and dancing. On these journeys, men would carry their spears, boomerangs and other hunting weapons, and women would carry babies, young children who couldn't walk very far, and on their heads, perhaps, a container of water or a bundle of food. For making music, there was very little to carry. Aboriginal music is mainly singing or vocal music, and each Aborigine carries the most important instrument for producing this kind of music in his own voice. Aboriginal singers must know the songs of their group, be able to sing them so that everyone can hear them, and they must always be ready to provide dance music, to sing dance songs whenever a corroboree takes place. As well as singing, Aborigines provide other continuous sounds that go along with or accompany their songs. These other sounds are made by sound instruments, and they help to keep the dancers in time with the singers. Some Aboriginal singing is unaccompanied, but all Aboriginal dance songs are accompanied by sound instruments. When Aborigines travel on foot, many of the wooden implements and weapons they carry are used as sound instruments to accompany their songs. But, like their own voices, there are some sound instruments that Aborigines don't have to carry. Hand clapping is one way of accompanying singing. Many of the older Aboriginal songs in northern Queensland are accompanied by these sounds. While you're listening to this Aboriginal dance song from North Queensland, clap your hands in time with those of the Aboriginal men who are singing. Other sounds can be made by the hands if they're used to strike parts of the body. On Bathurst and Melville Islands, Aboriginal men strike their hands on their thighs or on their buttocks as they sing. In central and southern parts of Australia and in northern parts of Western Australia, Aboriginal women slap their hands on their laps as they sing. Listen to the lap slapping sounds made by women in this recording. Other thumping sounds are made in central, southern and western parts of Australia by striking a stick or some other object on the ground. Some Aboriginal songs are accompanied by beating paired sticks together.
Pirikiala yurpam jungang, pirikiala yurpam jungang, pirikiala yurpam jungang, piringamoro yurpam jungang. Piringamoro yurpam jungang, pirikiala yurpam jungang, pirikiala yurpam jungang, piringamoro yurpam jungang.
Some song accompaniments include the sounds of a stick beating another stick lying on the ground. Many Aboriginal songs are accompanied by beating together boomerang clapsticks. Boomerang clapsticks can be beaten together to sound like this, or like this. Some Aboriginal songs in parts of Western Australia are accompanied by rasping sounds, like this. Sounds made by striking sticks together or by scraping sticks together are called idiophones. Sound instruments which are sounded by striking a stretched skin are called membranophones. The skin drum used by North Queensland Aborigines to accompany many of their dance songs belongs to the membranophone class of sound instruments. Here is an island-style song sung by Aboriginal men in Western Cape York, North Queensland. It's accompanied by skin drum, seed rattles, a pair of spoons, and guitars. Guitars are played by some Aboriginal people today, but these instruments are not traditional Aboriginal sound instruments. Stringed instruments, including guitars, are classed as chordophones. Traditional Aboriginal songs, that is, songs belonging to the Australian Aboriginal heritage, are not accompanied by chordophones. Instruments sounded by blowing, thus causing vibrations of air inside a tube, are classed as aerophones. A small aerophone sounds like this. A much larger aerophone, the didgeridoo, can sound like this. In Arnhem Land, didgeridoo playing is of two main types. The first is the continuous droning type you've just heard. This picture shows the Western Arnhem Land didgeridoo grip, which helps to raise the end of the droning instrument off the ground. Now listen to the practice syllables or mouth sounds which the player makes. The popular name for the instrument, didgeridoo, probably comes from these practice sounds. The Eastern Arnhem Land player grips the instrument near the mouth end. In this picture, the far end rests in a baler shell, showing an older manner of increasing the tone. More usual nowadays is the placing of the far end of the instrument inside a wooden box or bucket. You've been listening to a style of Eastern Arnhem Land didgeridoo playing in which a second and higher-pitched tone is sounded as well as the low-pitched drone tone. Now the player demonstrates the mouth sounds for this second type of didgeridoo playing. A good didgeridoo player must start learning at an early age. He must know the mouth sounds and the blowing patterns and be able to provide the right accompaniment for each song. We're now going to look at some maps. Here's a map showing the distribution of the didgeridoo in Australia. Here's a map showing the places where sticks beaten on the ground are used to accompany men's songs. On this map are marked the places where lap-slapping accompaniments have been heard. This map shows the wide distribution of boomerang clapsticks heard in accompaniment to singing. The skin drum is to be heard accompanying Aboriginal singing only in parts of North Queensland. and the rasp is heard only in parts of Western Australia. Contact. Compared with the desert regions and the scarcity there of food and water during periods of drought, supplies in north coastal regions are generally good. Aborigines in coastal regions were fishermen as well as hunters and food gatherers. Some of them still are. Water buffalo, brought into Australia from Timor, have been hunted by North Australian Aborigines for more than 100 years. In the tropical zone, where many Aborigines are living today, there are only two seasons, the wet and the dry. The dry season is the best time for hunting, fishing and gathering food such as fruit, berries and lily roots. It's the north coastal Aborigines who have had contact with non-Aboriginal people from other places. At the beginning of this century, and earlier, regular visits were made to parts of northern Australia by fishermen who came in sailing boats from the northwest, when the monsoon winds began to blow. These were Indonesian fishermen. They came from a place called Makassar, which you can see marked on this map. They used to come to Australia at about the same time every year to fish in northern coastal waters for bêche de mer, or trepang, a kind of sea slug. One result of these annual visits, which lasted for some months each time, was that tamarind trees began to grow, and now they provide good shade for Aborigines on northern Australian beaches. Malay or Macassan pipes are now smoked by Arnhem Land men. The craft of dugout canoe making was learnt by Aborigines years ago, following regular contacts they had with these Indonesian people. The Macassans came to Australia in fishing craft that looked like this. They came with the northwest winds before the wet season began, and returned home again in the dry season when the southeast winds began to blow. The usual name given to a boat like this is prau. Aborigines in eastern Arnhem Land pronounce this word as Burrawa. There are many songs in eastern Arnhem Land about boats of all kinds. The Aborigines call them Burrawa songs. In recent years, many new Burrawa songs have been found or made up by individual songmakers. The first song you'll hear is a fairly new Burrawa song from eastern Arnhem Land. It's called Mail Plane. The song words are in the Nungabuyu language. The next song is sung by an Aboriginal woman. It's a woman's Guricha song about an aeroplane. If you listen carefully, you'll hear two English words in this song, aeroplane and machine. As she sings them, the words sound like aeroplana and machina. The singer's own language is Mara.
lai mijina rangalanga lai mijina arabalana balana arabalana balana rangalanga lai mijina rangalanga lai mijina.
Among the coastal groups in Cape York, North Queensland, there's been regular contact between Australian Aborigines and the Torres Strait Islanders. The Torres Strait Islanders themselves have been in regular contact for a long time with people in New Guinea, and in more recent times with people from islands in the South Pacific. Many of the dance tunes sung by the younger Cape York Aborigines are similar in style to the dance tunes of the Torres Strait Island people. But the words of these island-style songs are in Australian Aboriginal languages. This song, called Sunset, is in Kunjin,